So in this video I'm going to be talking about the Reaver. So there's one build involving the Vortec rotary with fuel tanks. Usually it's better to run quick recharge because quick recharge is better in general. And you run racer high speed. I almost always run hover, but if you're not using the Vortec, there's literally no reason to use any other airframe other than hover. Now, fire suppression is really good for dogfighting. Make sure to use that. Decoy flares is more so for dealing with TR infantry zergs because strikers are so blatantly overpowered. So just use those if you're ever dealing with strikers. Now, I always run Hornets myself. Hornets are my favorite as far as secondaries go. Sometimes I will swap to worms, and I will show later how to deal with liberators fairly simply. I'll break it down as well, but as far as it goes, always pull a Mustang Reaver first, because that way you can make sure that the air is clear, so that way you can farm infantry using the air hammer. What's it called? The rotary is not the best against highly skilled pilots, so keep that in mind. Unless you have the drop on them, you'll lose, like 9 times out of 10. There's very few pilots that are like practiced enough with the Vortec to make it highly lethal unless they run stealth to complement it. So as far as fuel tanks go, never ever go high capacity, always go quick recharge. It's just better in general. Now, as far as pulling Reavers go, like I said, I recommend pulling the Mustang Reaver first and just checking out the area. Now, the Reaver reverse maneuver is better than a lot of the esfs because it has a lot more vertical thrust. Now, that being said, what you're seeing here is because of my sensitivity, I very easily hit the cap. But what some people do with lower sensitivity is bind their look up and down. It just allows them to spin around faster. But like I said, because my sensitivity is 2000 DPI, and I can't remember the setting, but it's high. And that being said, do not clone what I'm doing. Do not run at high DPI or high sensitivity until you're used to flying the Reaver. And fly at whatever sensitivity makes you feel comfortable. You can bump it up to make you feel better, if it makes you feel better, but do not do that. Anyways, so as far as fighting infantry goes, with the air hammer, find stranglehold points. It's huge because you can kill almost entire platoons of infantry very easily. Now, the Mustang, and whenever I say Mustang, I mean the default nose gun, not the Mustang air hammer. I know they share the same name. The air hammer is strictly infantry only. Now, as far as Hornets go, you can see in this clip here that they do quite a bit of damage to vehicles in general. And Skyguards are nothing to be afraid of when you have Hornets, as long as there's only one. Now, keep in mind, never engage a Skyguard if you feel uncertain about the air around you, as in there's pilots flying around, etc., etc. Another thing that I like to do, I don't have a clip of it, but if I feel uncertain, if I know I'm going to be farming infantry, what I'll do is every time I'm about to do a pass, I'll quickly free look up and do a quick check, because a lot of pilots, especially the quote-unquote good pilots, like to run stealth, and they'll just sit up at sky ceiling with a rotary or nose gun that is anti-air, and they'll just drop down on top of you. And that's a bad time for you, so if you just do that and you see them, you can bug out and possibly escape, and if you don't, you have the possibility to survive. Now, additionally, another thing you can do is to combat them. What I'll do is I'll just sit up at sky ceiling and wait for them. If they're being a nuisance, you can just wait for them, and usually they can't beat you in a nose-to-nose fight if you're practiced enough. So one thing that's very important to note is a lot of Liberator gunners struggle to hit ESFs when going left or right, because you're actually going left and downwards, so it throws their trajectories off. Now, it is important to note that every time you hear the reload, because sometimes you can hear the reload if you're in close proximity, make sure that you afterburn as soon as you hear that reload, because they're going to take a pot shot. And most Liberator gunners rely on luckier shots, let's be honest here. And that's completely fine. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's just the nature of a Liberator. So, yeah. And because you're running composite armor, you can very easily walk away from most fights. And because worms hit so hard, if you're hitting close proximity, you will absolutely shred them. They are not lethal. Now, if they have a tail gunner that's using a walker, that could be a nuisance. So you don't want to get hit. So when that happens, sometimes it is better to run fuel tanks, but I don't run them personally. I've never actually run into a Liberator where I was legitimately afraid enough to run fuel tanks, but usually I'll run worms or hornets. Hornets will chunk Liberators. They do a fair amount of damage. I think it takes between 10 and 15, which is equivalent to 5 megs, to fully kill them. And between your rotary, I will probably lose in most fights like this. However, because I dash behind this obstacle or terrain here, I quickly made it so he has to get close to me. And because I'm running Hornets, I have that lethal potential to kill him. However, size are hard to hit, so if you can get top armor and people, that helps. But as soon as they get close to you, you reverse maneuver out, which is what I showed earlier, where you pull your nose downwards. And because I'm facing vertically, it will always activate, or facing upwards, it will always activate reverse maneuver every time. So because I was able to do that, he wasn't able to get a good lead on me and slammed into the terrain there. And most pilots will do that, because they just don't know how to engage somebody who does that. Thanks for watching, and I might post more stuff later.